And we're going to go all the way down to verse 33. So we're going to start in the book of Matthew 14, verse 22. And straightway Jesus constrained his disciples to get into a ship and to go before him unto the other side, while he sent the multitudes away. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up into a mountain apart to pray. And when the evening was come, he was there alone. But the ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with waves, for the wind was contrary. And in the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went unto them, walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, It is a spirit, and they cried out for fear. But straightway Jesus spake unto them, saying, Be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid. And Peter said to him, and Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it be thou, bid me to come unto thee on the water. And he said, Come. And when Peter was come down out of the ship, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. And when he had saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand and caught him, and said unto him, O thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt? And when they were come unto the ship, the wind ceased. Then they that were turned into the ship came and worshipped him, saying, Of a truth, thou art the Son of God. So in this scene that we're watching right here, it's from this show called The Chosen. And in this moment, they had been put into a boat. Jesus had sent them away and said, I'll meet you guys on the other side, and I'm going to go out to pray for a bit. And then when they were in the middle of the sea, there was a storm that hit them, and you can see here that they were panicking, kind of freaking out, because they thought they saw a ghost out in the water, and you can see the lightning strike and thunder, and the rain kind of makes it hard to see, but they see a body standing out in front of them, and they're wondering, it has to be some type of spirit, because this hasn't been seen before, where somebody's standing on water. Jesus approaches them at that point, and then he tells them, it's me, don't be afraid. It's Jesus. And Peter tells them at that point, Peter tells Jesus, if it really is you, if you are who you say, if it's you, command me to come out into the water. And Jesus, not what it says here in Scripture, but I think from what they're taking here in the context of it all, he says, you can command anything. And Jesus says, if you have that faith to walk out, if you can come out of that boat, then come to me. He tells him, go ahead and come. And Peter starts walking to him, and he tells him to keep his eyes on him. And at some point, when Peter does look away to the waves that are crashing to the side of him, he starts to take his eyes off Jesus. And Jesus even tells him at that point, just keep your eyes on me. When he takes them off, he starts to sink. Jesus pulls him out. And Simon immediately just starts to weep, and he's crying, and he's telling him, don't let me go, don't let me go. And Jesus is comforting him afterwards and telling him, I have you, don't worry, I'm right here, I'll always be here. And I think it's so beautiful, because to give you a little bit of context behind that, just what happened previously was, in the Bible, from commentaries that I've read, they don't know exactly what got Peter to say, if it's you, let me go, bid me to come to the water. There's no context in the Bible that tells us that Peter was having a hard day, or Peter was feeling so peppy and so great. And they can only think that for him to have said that in that moment of so much conflict and so much going on, his faith was great, but he was struggling with something. And I think the show does a really good job at showing that he had some conflict going on in his life at that time, when he's telling Christ about everything that's happening. He says, I'm so distraught right now at this moment. And as he's coming to him, he's telling him, it's okay, come. He says, then come to me, who are weak and heavy laden. He goes, and I will give you rest. And he's trying to tell him, it's okay, come. Then you see Peter change from this attitude of kind of being a little distraught and angry to now relying on Jesus fully and leaning on him, and just telling him, just don't let me go. Don't let go of me. And Jesus keeps comforting him by just telling him, I've got you. I'm right here. And puts him in the boat. And even when he's on the boat at that moment, he's pleading and telling him, I'm sorry, just don't let me go. And he's telling him, I'm here, I'm always here. And I think in this context, you're just seeing this whole thing unravel, and you're wondering what's happening here. What was the reason that this comes out? And what is the reason why the Bible tells us about him telling Peter, come to me, walk on the water, looks away, starts to sink, pulls him out to tell him, it's okay, I've got you. And to tell him, oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt? Where did you go doubting? And to command the sea, the winds to stop and the storm to settle, only for them at the end to say, of truth, you are the Son of God. What's happening here? What's our message about tonight? I wanted to go over something different as we move away from the series that we were doing before. Now I want to move into a little bit more about faith and different situations of faith. And we're going into this one. The title I have for tonight is Faith to Walk on Water. Peter had the faith to walk on water. That is no doubt, because the Bible tells us here, when he stepped onto the water, he was able to walk to go to Jesus. So our message tonight is faith to walk on water. We're going to be looking at a really big foundation that Christians need in their everyday lives is faith. And where does that faith come from? And can we look at people in the Bible that can display this type of faith and can, put this type of faith out there for us. And Hebrews chapter 11 is known as a faith chapter, but I just really think that seeing this one several times and talking about it with Christy, there's even a song that we listen to. There's this album that came out recently that we listened to that talks about his story. It's called His Story, and it's about the life of Jesus. And in this album, there's one song called One Step at a Time. And in this song, you're hearing from the perspective of Peter talking about wondering if this is truly the Son of God. And he has this faith, but he's just trying to figure out more or less what's going on in his life here, and only to see this whole thing happen in front of him. And there's a beautiful line in there where he tells them, where Peter starts singing and saying, is that a ghost? Is that a spirit? Like, what is that looking at me? And Jesus replies in the song and says, Peter, I think you know it's me. And Peter replies back, then tell me to come to you. And the next beautiful line is, come to me. And I think it's just so beautiful when I heard that song and just hearing all these things. There was no doubt that I felt like this was such a message to bring tonight about what happened here, that Peter had the faith to walk on water. Peter had the faith to trust in Jesus Christ at this moment. And so tonight we're gonna talk a little bit more just about what happens when you have that little faith, somebody that had a little faith in the middle of a big storm but met a mighty Savior, that met someone like Jesus Christ. So my first point for tonight after reading Matthew 14 is, let's see one thing that really is present here for us in both areas of Scripture and in what we just saw. Number one, the presence of the storm. There was a storm that they went through at the beginning of this passage. In my Bible here, it tells me walking on the sea. And right after that, it's verse 22. And it says, in verse 24, it says, but the ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with waves, for the wind was contrary. And here it's telling us that they went into the middle of the sea as they were going through. There was a storm that hit. There was a storm in that moment. The ship was out there in the middle of the sea. There was no easy way of going back to where they came from. So where they were at, they were in the middle point of where they're going. So it's probably pointless to go all the way back because Jesus said to meet them on the other side, but they're still a while away from getting to their other destination. They're still a while away from being able to meet Jesus on the other side of the water. And I think we can kind of compare that a little bit more. I think the Bible tells us this because as we get older, as we start to move into our life, as we go from our childhood stage into the middle school stage into now high school and moving into high school to college and from college into now adulthood. We're all at different points in our life, but trying to see this here is as we move on from our life, as we get older and older, we start to go out into our own life. We start to move out into the middle of the sea. So we can't go back into our childhood, but we're not being able to go, we can't see the end of our lives just right now at the moment. We're in the middle of our own sea. We're in the middle of our own lives in this very moment. So I think you can see here in this context is they're stuck in this point in time, and out of nowhere, boom, a storm hits. My first point for tonight was the storm began in the middle of the sea. Sometimes storms happen for us in our own lives, in the middle of our own lives. It doesn't happen at times from the very beginning. As soon as you're born, boom, there you are set with a problem right then and there. For some people, I know they have a lot of problems happening, but I think when we're babies at that point, we don't know what problems really are. We don't express like, oh, I have this assignment, or I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't think infants really think about that. I don't believe they really see those type of things. They're just barely learning how to be able to identify who they are and what's that and how to speak and how to move. So I can see here that the storm began in the middle of the sea. Problems will begin in the middle of your life. Problems will begin as you get older, as you start to live life. The more you're out there, the more you're living, the more you're trying to find a job, or you're trying to make friends, or you're trying to start a relationship, you're trying to maybe establish yourself in the workplace, or you're trying to figure out what major you want to go into, or what are you trying to find your purpose in this thing called life. Just being able to try to push yourself into that, you're going to see problems to start to come. Second point, the storm brought waves and wind. The storm was not just rain just hitting them. It wasn't just heavy rain. The winds were crashing into them. The wind was strong. The waves were there ready to just knock them over. And it was a really, really hard moment for them. I did a little bit of background on this story here, and it says the Sea of Galilee was known to bring random storms at random times in random areas. So you could be in this part of the sea, and a couple of miles away down that way, there's no storm happening. You could be at this point in the water, and there was a storm happening right there, but then you look right over, and there's nothing happening on that other side. They said it was random, and it could happen at any given moment. I don't think they really expected at that point in time to be caught into a storm, and I just think that it happened randomly out of nowhere. It just caught them in that moment. And sometimes, again, comparing this to what the faith that Peter had, or talking about a little bit about faith and what the story teaches us, again, as we live our lives, situations occur, problems happen, we meet obstacles, and guess what? Sometimes it's at the most random time of our lives. Sometimes it's the most random moment that we occur. When my grandmother passed away just I want to say it was a couple of weeks ago, but I'm already thinking, it's been a little bit longer than that. When she passed, I was at work doing my normal everyday activities. I was going from class to class. We were going to our classes. We were giving our instruction. We were laughing with our coworkers. We were hearing the announcements. Everything was happening as normal. And then I get a phone call, and they're telling me it doesn't look good. Several moments later after that, I get another phone call just a couple of hours down the line, and she's gone. In that moment there, everything changed. When I woke up that morning, I didn't know there was going to be something hitting me that hard. I wasn't prepared for that moment, but guess what? It happened randomly. And that's because several days before, we had celebrated her birthday. Several days before, we had been with her at a get-together with all of our family and loved ones, and we were celebrating her birthday. That storm, I did not see that coming. That was a random one that hit us at a random moment in a random location. I was not in church at that moment. I was not at home with my wife. I was not with my family in the hospital preparing for these things. It was just out of nowhere. Within a span of a couple of hours, I'm sorry, she's not here anymore. Random things like that can happen to us, and I'm sure we all have our own experiences of difficulty hitting us in our lives, and I'm sure we can all recall back to those type of things, and I know I can recall to several more other than that, but I just want us to see that what's happening here in this situation is they're caught in a random spot at a random moment with a random storm. Something they were not thinking, oh, look, there's a storm right there, let's try to go around it. No, they're sailing through only to be caught right there in an instant with just this wind and this rain and with the waves just crashing, and they're losing control of the boat, and they're trying to steer in there. And I think in the scene, if I'm not mistaken, if not, they're saying that it's pointless for us to just keep rowing. It's kind of like, what are we doing here in this moment? What are we even making? We're just tiring ourselves out only to accomplish nothing. Life sometimes hits us like that. The life that we live sometimes just occurs like that. We feel like we're pushing and pushing and pushing, and no matter what we're doing, it just seems pointless. I continue to push and push and push on this only to see myself just set back. I continue to try and try and try at work only for them to tell me, you didn't do a good job. You're still missing that. You're still lacking this. I know I tried that at my previous job. No matter how much I was doing, no matter how much I was pushing, there was one time I was working an event, and I put everything I could and every effort I could to make it as successful as possible. It was the largest event that we had held at the golf course ever, with the most capacity, and even filling it up more and more and more, only to be told afterwards, after we got everything set and I put everything out there, we made everything so as awesome as we could with all the things that we had to work with, only to be told afterwards, that didn't look too good right there. And I thought, when that guy told me that, when one of the supervisors told me that, I thought, really? Couldn't see everything else happening around you? I mean, everyone's happy, everyone's out there, money's being made, and your business is looking good, and it just looks so awesome out there. People are so out, they're just ready to have a great time over the next 4 to 6 hours, and you're going to tell me that that podium doesn't look good, or that picture on the wall didn't look too great? I'm like, really? You're going to bring me down? Like, you're going to try to push me like that? Sometimes it happens like that. We're going, we're ready, and we have this spirit of just yes, only to be told no. Sometimes it's like that. There's no denying that. And I think that's what shows it here, is the fact that Jesus didn't tell them right before, when he sent them into the sea, when he told them go into the other side, he didn't tell them, but hold up, there's a storm right there waiting for you, so I advise you to try to go around it or try to push through it. Or no, he's just telling them, I need you to go out there. He knows exactly what's going to happen. But at this point in time, he's not giving them that warning, and I think it's for a reason. I think he's trying to show them, hey, I want you to just trust me. I'm telling you what to do. Just go out there, and you're going to see exactly what I have for you. Because as soon as they get caught in that storm, what happens? They're freaking out. They're panicking a little bit. I'm sure it doesn't feel good to be rocking back and forth and having no control and no vision of anything at all whatsoever out there. And we see our second point for tonight. So we move from the presence of the storm. Now we move into our second point tonight, the arrival of Jesus. In verse number, where is it at? Right here, I have it. 25, Matthew 14, verse 25. And in the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went unto them walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled. It is a spirit, and they cried out for fear. But straightway Jesus spake unto them, saying, Be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid. My second point for tonight is the arrival of Jesus. And right after that, I have, he meets you in the middle of your storm. So here they are being confronted by this huge situation. And it says that at that fourth watch of the night, that's anywhere between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. They said it's around that time, the middle of the night area where most people would probably be pretty much asleep, almost getting into that morning portion, but not just quite there yet. In that moment in time, it says that Jesus went out there at that time to greet them, to meet them at that moment of the storm. And they see him and they kind of panic and they're like, it's a ghost, it's a spirit. And then he meets them with the phrase, it is be of good cheer, be not afraid. He goes, it's I, don't be afraid. I want us to go to Psalms chapter 61, verse 3 real quick. Psalm 61, verse 3. For thou hast been a shelter for me and a strong tower from the enemy. Isaiah 25:4. Let's go to Isaiah 25:4 real quick. So we read Psalms chapter 61, verse 3. For thou hast been a shelter for me and a strong tower from the enemy. Now we're going to go into Isaiah 25, verse 4. For thou hast been a strength to the poor, a strength to the needy and the distressed, a refuge from the storm, and a shadow from the heat, when the blast of the terrible ones is a storm against the wall. Twice you see the word storm in here, and in Psalms 61 verse 3, you kind of see the same area of being a refuge, a shelter. I think it just tells us that throughout the Bible, you're going to see several times, including here, that Jesus is going to meet you out there. Jesus is going to be that shelter in that time of the storm. Jesus is going to be the person who's going to keep you in that moment in time. And notice here that in Matthew 14, it says that when he met them out there, Jesus is right there ready to stand with them and is ready to say, I'm not waiting for you to cross to the other side. I'm not waiting for you to come back this way and think that, okay, never mind, maybe we should turn back. No, he says, I'm going to meet you out there. When we have the worst problems in our life, when we have the worst things happening to us, Christ is ready to meet you right there in the center of that storm. He's not scared of the storm. He's not moving away from the storm. He's not looking at the storm thinking, that's kind of difficult. I don't know about that situation in your life. Let me see how this plays out a little bit more. And depending on how you choose, okay, I'll kind of step into here. No, he's ready to meet you right there. They could have easily probably just seen the figure and thought, this is kind of freaky. I'm sorry. I'm jumping out the boat. I'll try to swim back. I'll do something else other than what's happening right here in front of me. But they met Christ right there, and Christ met them. He stopped right there, and he told them, it's me. It's okay. I'm right here for you. He meets us right in the middle of our problems. Again, he doesn't want to wait till you get across. He says, I'm ready to meet you right here and right there. My second point, be of good cheer. Be not afraid. Christ wants us to know that we will have inevitable obstacles in our life. Let's go to John 16, verse 33 real quick. John 16, verse 33. These things have I spoken unto you, that in me you might have peace. In the world ye shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. I always love this verse. I always love John 14, 15, and 16, the way he's speaking to them. And I love how he ends John chapter 16 because he tells them, I have spoken these things to you knowing that you might have peace. He says, in this world you will have tribulation. He says, you will have it. He doesn't say you might. He doesn't say it's a 50-50 chance. It's more on the 70 percentile. He goes, no. He says you will. It's a promise almost. It's inevitable. You can't avoid having tribulation. You can't avoid having these problems in your life. And he says, but it's okay. Be of good cheer. Be happy. Know the fact that I have overcome this world. He says, you will have tribulation in this world, but I have overcome the world. In Matthew 14, he's meeting them right there, and they're in the middle of their own storm, and they're in the middle of this, but I think it's so beautiful because Christ wants them to know you're in the middle of this in this exact moment, and you can't avoid it. There's something happening here. You just can't move around. Many times in my life have I seen obstacles that I thought, is there a way that I can just kind of go around that? Is there a way that I can kind of fix that? Is there a way that I can avoid that? Only to know I couldn't. Only to know that you can't move away from that. You have to face what's in front of you. You have to go through it. Maybe there's a way that I can avoid talking to a certain person about a certain situation, or maybe there's a certain way that I can kind of get away with doing something at work or cutting a corner, and maybe there's something I can better myself and try this a little differently, but only to kind of go, nope, I got to just face it. I just have to fess up. I just have to go through this situation. It might make things worse. It might be hard. It might last for a while. It might not be something that gets resolved really fast, but I have to do it. And it's such a beautiful thing to see the fact that Christ says in the most dark moment, in the nastiest, the scariest, the most shameful, the moments of your life, he's ready to meet you there. I know this wasn't a beautiful scene. I know this was not a beautiful moment to see that, okay, they're feeling great, they're doing well. No, everything that could be going wrong for them is going wrong for them. And I think that's such a beautiful thing to see. Christ is standing right there, and he's holding his own against the water too, and he's standing there, and he's ready to meet you, because in that moment of time, Christ is not ready to find you in church. He's not ready to find you here dressed up in the most beautiful clothing and in your most beautiful spirit, in your most, wow, I'm feeling so successful right now, I'm feeling so great, and I'm just so happy right now. No, beyond that, he wants to see you there at that moment. He's happy to see you there, but I think when you see Christ in your life, it's at that point in time where you don't want anyone else to see you. You don't want anyone else to meet you. You don't want anyone else to see that door that's closed. You want to be in that room by yourself, and there he is right there. I'm sure the disciples that are in the dark with lightning flashing and thunder crashing and everything just happening there, they're thinking to themselves, what's going on here? And Jesus is right there ready to meet them. And the same thing goes for us in that moment where it's just so horrible, where we're just so torn apart, where we feel like we're lesser than less, and we feel so ugly in ourselves. I know I've had that moment before. Christ is standing there saying, be of good cheer. Don't be afraid. It's me. I'm right here ready to meet you. I'm right here ready to save you from this storm. The disciples didn't stand there and go, well, Lord, make it go away. Just tell it to stop. No, they're standing there just facing their problems, and he's meeting them just right there. So we see those three things. We see the presence of the storm, and we can see what that brings and how life is inevitably just brings us problems. It just happens like that in this world. We can see Jesus comes to meet them in the middle of the storm, and he gives them hope. He gives them good cheer. He tells them, it's okay. Have a good spirit. I'm right here. Only to see into our third point now, and into my last point for tonight, in point 3, bid me to come. So how does this tie into our faith? How does this tie into a faith type of chapter? How does this tie into something that we're talking about, into our foundation of Christianity? Well, let's go into Matthew 14 again real quick. And I'm going to read this part, the last part we have here. And Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it be thou, bid me to come thee unto the water. That's verse 29. And he said, come. I love that right there. It just says one word. He says, come. He says, go ahead and come to me. And when Peter came down out of the ship, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. When he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand and caught him and said unto him, O thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt? My first point in point 3 is Peter wanted to go to Jesus in the hard moment. Again, they don't know. Context doesn't really tell us what made Peter so ambitious to say, if it's really you, if you bid me, let me go into the water, let me walk to you. We don't know, but we know the fact that Peter was presenting a tremendous amount of faith, or what he was thinking was a tremendous amount of faith. He was saying, I have the ability to say, I want to go to Jesus. I want to go to you in this moment. And it's not much, and you would think that under better circumstances, it'd probably be a lot easier to go to Jesus. But here he is standing up, and you can see the other disciples in the scene when he says, if it's really you, tell me to come out command me to go into the water. And they're telling him, are you crazy? Stop. Like, this is insane. Do you not see what's going on around you right now? And do you really want to walk out there? Like, are you going to try this right now at this moment? Peter wanted to go to him in the moment. Peter could have asked Jesus, okay, if it's really you, stop the storm, and then I'll go to you. Stop this moment here, and I'll meet you right there. He could have told him to show him a different sign and said, if it's really you, do something, flash a bolt of lightning here and do this for me. And then I'll be able to say, okay, now I can walk out on here. But he just tells him, if it's you, bid me to come into the water. Bid me to go to you. Let me go to you. I think sometimes that shows that as Christians, we might even think of it that way. We might even say, Lord, if you're really going to help me with this, take this away from me. Just let it pass from me. I don't want this in my life right now. And once I see that moment gone, I can praise you. I can just rejoice in your name. But sometimes Christ is telling us, you can rejoice in my name even during the storm. You can rejoice in me. You can come to me at this moment, and you will still be of good cheer. You will still have that happiness. You will still be able to declare my name. So he says, let me go to you. I want to go to you. In those moments, he's realizing that Christ is there waiting for him. And he's saying, well, what am I waiting for? I'm going to go out there. And as Christians, I think that's the most beautiful thing that we can do, is when we see that dark moment in our life, when we see that the hard times, we can say, right here, right now, Lord, I'm ready to go to you. I'm ready to seek you. I'm ready to find you. I need you in this exact moment. And Peter is saying that right here. His faith goes to a point to where he says, I know it's you. Bid me to come. Let me go to you. Let me walk on this water to find you. And Jesus tells him there, if you have the faith, come. You have that faith, come. And it's a big stress right there. He's trying to express this whole thing about faith. And Jesus here in the Bible says one word, come. Go ahead. I want you to come to me. Second point, faith to walk on water. I remember when I was younger, I don't remember if it happened to me, but I remember like it happened to this whole, I think it happened to me one time with my family, and I think it happened for sure to my sisters. We were at the beach one time and we were in the water, and the further you go out, of course they say the current gets stronger, so the further you go out into the water, the stronger the current becomes ready to take you on. You don't have any more of your ability to touch the ground. The water gets deeper, it goes past the 4 feet, 5 feet, 6 feet, all the way up until, sometimes you see people all the way out there and they're just, and you want to try to go out there, but it gets deeper and deeper. You don't really know where the ground's at. And that happened to us one time. I think we got caught by a little bit of this current, and as it kind of got stronger, we were thinking, whoa, where are we going at this point? What's happening here? It kept getting a little stronger and stronger, and there's a little bit of panic, and in that panic, you're like, what am I supposed to do here? What am I supposed to do? And they tell you, or my parents would tell me, if that ever happens to you, just swim parallel, try to let it take you back that way. It wants to kind of push you back towards shore, but it's going to pull you first and then go this way. Pull you first and then go that way. But it's scary to feel yourself getting tugged and then being pushed back, and then tugged again. You have no control, and then being pushed back again one more time. And I remember we were finally able to get a good grasp of like the ground. We were able to find ourselves in a good spot. I think our dad was able to come out and help us out. I'm trying to recall as much as I can, but I remember at that point we were able to like get out of there, and we were like, okay, no, let's not go back out that far again. Peter had that faith to walk on water. And I can see in this moment, he's trying to walk towards Jesus. He's trying to go towards Jesus. Jesus is telling him, keep your eyes on me. And as soon as he's walking like that, as soon as you feel good, as soon as he's keeping his eyes straight on him, and Jesus tells him, keep your eyes on me, come. And then he just takes one look to the side. He takes one look to the side, and he starts to realize, wait a minute, what's happening here? And then he starts to sink. In verse 30, he says, but when he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid and beginning to sink. So in that moment in time, he's keeping his eyes on Jesus. He's pushing to keep his sight there. As soon as he takes one look away, he sees how strong the storm is. He starts to panic. He starts to freak out. The same thing happened with us and my family. We feel good. We're walking out there. We feel like we're in control. We got this. We're feeling good. And then only to feel ourselves get taken by that current, to be taken by the waves. We're kind of like, now you don't have any control of the situation. Now you're stuck here and you're trying to figure out, what am I supposed to do? How do I get out of this? I think it's, again, such a beautiful sight to see that Peter's walking here, and as he's going towards Jesus, he's keeping his eyes on him, and then he starts to sink when he looks away. I've seen many things, like many people give messages on this whole situation, but I think no matter what we say, it's so amazing to think that it's true. You keep your eyes on Jesus, like he asked him to keep his eyes on him, you're going to be fine. He was able to walk because his sight was on him. He tells them, come to me. Come towards me. If you're going towards something, you should be keeping your eyes on that one particular thing. If I'm trying to walk towards the door, the minute I look away, I might bump into a table. I might bump into the wall. I might knock over something. You need to keep your eyes fixed on what you're trying to accomplish, what you're trying to go towards. Peter was trying to do the same thing here. He has his eyes focused on Jesus, only to look away for a moment to see himself freaking out with circumstances around him. Happens to us a lot. We have our eyes fixed on Jesus. We have our eyes ready to look at him. We have our sight set on Christ. I'm ready to get closer to you. I'm ready to build my relationship with you. I'm ready to get back into church. I'm ready to get my life set right with you again. I'm ready to find that joy that you promised me. I'm ready to be of good cheer and all these things. And then the minute something just shakes the door, the minute something shakes our lives around a little bit, we look away and then we realize, oh, wait a minute. We start to panic. We take our eyes off of him. I can tell you many times I've been in church here and I put my head down and I'm praying and I'm thinking, Lord, let me just get closer to you. I want to be closer to you. I'm ready to get closer to you. I feel so good right now, ready to get closer to you. Help me get closer to you. The following day, something happens and there I am in a panic. And then I realized I took my eyes off of him. I took my eyes off of him when he was telling me, it's okay, walk to me, come to me. In the hardest moment of your life, it's okay, come. And I'm like, yes, I'm ready. I see you. Here I go. I know I can walk on water. And Christians, sometimes I think that's not our problem. We don't have a problem knowing the fact that Jesus is standing right there for us in the middle of the ocean, ready to meet us in the middle of the storm. I think it's the fact that we just have that trouble, like Peter does, keeping our eyes on him. I don't think Christ was telling him, you have little faith because you said, come out into the water because you know it's me. He says, no, I think you just had focus. You had a problem staying focused right on me. He says, where did you doubt? My last point here says, O ye of little faith, why did you doubt? If we go back into Matthew 14 as we begin to close, he says, in verse 30 again, when he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid and beginning to sink, he cried, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand and caught him and said unto him, O thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt? Wherefore didst thou doubt? He says, you of little faith, where did you begin to doubt? Why did you begin to doubt? I think it's, again, just really amazing to see that as soon as he starts to sink, he's calling on the Lord to save him. The same way we see it here. He says, I'm sinking, Lord, save me. He could have looked to anything else. He could have looked to anyone else. He could have told his disciples in the back, guys, do something. I'm sinking right here. But he looks right at Jesus and he says, I'm sinking, Lord, save me. And it's beautiful in the Bible to hear. And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand and said, I'm going to pull you out. As Christians, I think we forget that sometimes. That as soon as we call upon him, he's there ready to save us. We won't always hear the answer we want to hear, but he's ready to stretch forth his hand and say, just take my hand, it'll be okay. We don't know what okay looks like sometimes. We don't know what okay sounds like sometimes. We don't know what the okay is going to be, but Jesus stretched forth his hand and he says, just grab it, take it. I'm here ready to pull you out. Peter's problem wasn't that he couldn't walk on the water anymore. It was the fact that he took his eyes off Jesus. And he had the faith to call to him and tell him, I want you to bring me out here. I want you to let me come to you. It was the fact that he had taken his eyes off of him in the first place. And I think that's why Christ tells him at that point in time, oh, ye of little faith, why did you doubt? He says, you took that first step. You went out there and you're ready to find me, but you started walking to me only to take your eyes up and look at the storm around you, only to look at the situations around you. He says, focus on me. I'm right here. This is the only thing you need to see right here. He says, the only vision you need is right here on me. And I really feel like tonight, as we talked about faith to walk on water, as you see Peter here in this example, is he's trying to teach us, like Hebrews chapter 11, by faith. Noah did this. By faith, Moses did this. By faith, Joseph did this. By faith, Jacob and Isaac. And you see all these other examples of people in the Bible. And I think it's beautiful to think that by faith, Peter, yes, was able to call and say, if you can bid me, I will come to you. But I think it's even more humbling for us to see the fact that when Christ tells him, oh, ye of little faith, he's not calling him out, trying to humiliate him. He's trying to tell him, you took your eyes off me. I want you to look at me. See, Peter had that faith to walk on water. Peter had the faith to take the first step and say, I want to go to you. I'm looking to you. I found you. You're right here because you met me in the middle of my dark moment, but now keep your eyes on me. I think it's, again, so beautiful to see there that he's telling him, just don't let me go, don't let me go, don't let me go. I can imagine being in that situation only to find myself probably begging Christ himself to say, don't let me go. Just like you pulled me out of that water, don't let me go. And even more assuring to hear Christ tell me something like, I'm here, I'm always here. I'm right here, ready to be with you. I will not let you go. As we begin to close, I just want to really just ask this question. And I think it's the question that Jesus asked Peter, is why did we doubt? Why do we doubt? Why do we have those moments in our life where we take our eyes off of Jesus? We can have that faith to walk on water. We can have that faith to be able to walk in the middle of our storm, in the middle of the biggest problem you can face in your life. And believe me, they will continue to come. I know that sounds horrible, and I know that sounds morbid. I know that sounds so depressing. But the thing is, as we continue to live life here, we will always face problems. But here's the hope that we can have. Like he says in John 16:33, be of good cheer, I have overcome this world. I will be there for you in that moment. If you feel like Peter tonight, I know I do many times. I feel like him at times where I'm thinking to myself, yes, Lord, I want to go to you, but why did I doubt? Why did I take my eyes off of you? I really think we need to ask our questions. Can we have faith like Peter to walk on that water, to face our storm, and to walk, to go towards Jesus? He's ready to meet you out there in the middle of the storm. Are you ready to keep your eyes on him and have that faith to walk on water, to walk in the middle of your storm? Let's go ahead and close. Heavenly Father, Lord, I want to thank you for this Wednesday night. And Lord, it's always, again, such a blessing, Lord, and I'll say it many times and many days to come. Just such a big blessing to be here in your house, Lord, to be able to preach your word and just to read your word here, Lord, and gather with people of like-mindedness. And Lord, tonight I just want to thank you for giving us this situation here with Peter, dear Lord, walking on the water, to have the faith to go to you. But now, Lord, to have more faith that we would need to keep our eyes on you, Lord. I know there's been plenty of times where I'm ready to go to you, but I know that I fall short. My vision falls short. I move away from you, Lord. And I pray, Lord, that if there's anyone here facing similar circumstances in any similar way, Lord, that we would have the eyesight to keep on you. We would have the eyes to focus on you, Lord. That we could know the fact that we can face any circumstance that comes our way, that you're in charge, Lord. That you are ready to meet us out there in the middle of this storm, Lord. Thank you so much, Lord, for giving us faith. Thank you so much for the faith that you can give us. Thank you so much, Lord, for loving us, for saving us, Lord. And I pray, Lord, that if there's someone here tonight, Lord, that it doesn't know Christ as their Savior, that doesn't know you as somebody who can be the shelter in the storm, Lord, I pray that they would speak to one of us, Lord, that we can show them for sure, that they can know for sure that they're going to heaven, to know for sure that they have that salvation in you, Lord. Thank you for always being so good to us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.